My name is Theo, an interior architect specializing in kitchens and living rooms. I've been freelancing for years now, piecing together spaces where people can breathe a little easier amid the chaos of daily life. I live alone in a modest apartment on the outskirts of Seattle, just a few blocks from the water, close enough to catch the faint salt tang in the air, but far enough from the city's hum to actually hear the quiet. And lately, that quiet had started to roar in my ears. Too much empty space between the days, too few things to hold on to. A long relationship had ended not with a bang, but with a slow fade, like paint trickling down a wall, unnoticed until the colors blurred into nothing. We'd both seen it coming, but too late to catch it. Since then, I hadn't dated anyone. Not because I didn't want to, but because it didn't feel right. It was as if I'd stepped out of myself for a moment and gotten lost on the way back. Then came the wedding invitation. Ethan, my old college roommate, reached out of the blue. We hadn't spoken in ages, life's currents pulling us in different directions. I had no plans that weekend, so I went. Maybe it was time to step back into the world, to swap my work jacket for something sharper, to trade mood boards and tile swatches for actual faces and voices. The ceremony was intimate, unpretentious, set on a hillside ringed by towering pines. Late summer air brushed against the skin like a soft promise. I arrived alone in a navy suit that had fit better in my 20s, hanging back on the edges of the crowd. I made small talk with strangers about nothing important, nursed a drink, then found a quiet table in the back. There was no part of me that wanted to perform that day, no charm offensive, no forced smiles. And that's exactly when I saw her. Sloane. She wore a pale blue dress, understated, almost too subdued for the occasion, yet she stood out, like the light around her had warmed just a degree. She sat 2 tables away, sipping white wine, watching the scene unfold as if she were both in it and floating above. No laughter bubbling from her, no sway toward the dance floor. Near the bar stood a man, likely her husband, lost in a boisterous conversation with a group of guys. He never once glanced her way. I told myself I was reading too much into that distant gaze of hers, but then her eyes met mine. It wasn't flirtation, it was recognition, a look that whispered, "I see you. Do you see me?" I glanced away on instinct, like flinching from a light that's too bright. Later, the music shifted to one of those wedding classics, the kind that draws couples to the floor like moths to a flame. A hand tapped my shoulder. I turned. There she was, Sloane, closer than I'd imagined. Up close, she seemed even calmer, more defined. Her eyes held exhaustion but also a quiet hunger that hadn't given up. "Dance with me," she said softly. "Before he notices." I stood without a word. We slipped to a shadowed corner of the dance floor away from the press of bodies. Her hand in mine was light, tentative but present. We didn't speak, we just moved, slow and unhurried, 2 strangers with nothing to prove. After a while she murmured, "I haven't danced like this in so long." "With a stranger?" I asked. "No," she replied. "With someone who sees me." I said nothing. Words would have shattered it. Her husband was still at the bar, glued to his phone now. She flicked a quick glance his way, closed her eyes, and whispered, "Thank you." When the song ended, she released my hand. "That's enough," she said, not harshly, but like someone drawing a boundary to survive. She returned to her table, poured another glass. I didn't see her again that night. I didn't even learn her name. I sat there, a little dazed, the echo of her touch lingering like a half-remembered dream. It wasn't until later that I realized. That moment was the spark. Days blurred by, but she lingered in my thoughts more than she should have. I didn't tell a soul. Not because it was scandalous, but because I couldn't explain it without sounding unhinged. It was just a dance. And yet it wasn't. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Hi, it's Sloane from the wedding. Just wanted to say thank you. It meant more than you know." I stared at the screen. Sloane. I hadn't even known her name. I typed, deleted, typed again. Finally, "I'm glad. It was a good moment. Hope you're okay." Her reply came in seconds. "Okay is complicated. But you made me feel like myself for 3 whole minutes." From there, the messages trickled in, sporadic at first, then steady. Nothing improper. No hints or innuendos. Just raw honesty. She opened up about her life: 2 kids, part-time at a nonprofit helping underprivileged families, a husband who traveled constantly and, even when home, was absent in ways that cut deeper than distance. She'd been a competitive dancer once, dreamed of becoming a school counselor, entered her marriage out of duty and a fear of solitude. I didn't pry, she just shared, and I listened, offering echoes of understanding when they fit. One afternoon I asked if she'd grab coffee. Not a date, just coffee. The next morning, sure. We met at a little spot by the park. No makeup, hair pulled back in a loose ponytail, tired lines around her eyes but real, unguarded. When she spotted me, her smile broke wide. not polite, but the kind that says you've been missed without realizing it. We talked work, the kids' latest antics. Then, softly, I know what this looks like, but I don't want to cheat. I just needed to feel human again, not wife, not mom, just me. I get it, I said. She stared into her mug. Don't take this the wrong way, but I didn't pick you that night. I just saw someone who looked at me, not through me. It landed like a quiet ache, stirring something deep I hadn't named yet. Before leaving, she slipped me a scrap of paper. My real number. She trailed off. Just in case. That night, I texted, just so you know I saw you too. Her reply pinged early the next morning. That means more than you think. And so it began, not a thunderclap, but a gentle current carving its path. We messaged daily, towing no lines, no flirting. We simply were. Two souls brushing the edges of their lives, choosing to linger in that overlap. She described how Oliver, her husband, had once been thoughtful, bringing her coffee in bed, sketching out weekend getaways, only for it all to drip away like a faucet left trickling. She didn't cry or complain, she laid it out plain, and I'd gather the pieces, sometimes with words, sometimes just, I hear you. Weeks in, I suggested a walk, no agenda, no shadows. We met at noon in the park, jeans, gray hoodie, hair swept back, exhausted, but beautiful in that unadorned way no filter could capture. We wandered aimlessly, swapping stories from younger days. She asked about my ex, and I answered straight, no fights, no betrayal. We just stopped choosing each other every day. She nodded, letting it sink in. That's what scares me most, she said finally. That he doesn't even notice us fading. That good enough feels like enough to him. We settled on a bench by the pond, ducks tracing lazy ripples across the water. I've been invisible for so long, she confessed. At the wedding, you looked at me like no one has in years. You deserve to be seen, I replied. Her eyes glistened, not tears, but a sheen of vulnerability. I'm terrified of losing everything. Even if it's what I don't want anymore. I knew she meant the scaffolding of it all, routines that shielded and smothered in equal measure. Do you want to leave? I asked gently. Some days yes. Others I want to scream and then pretend it's all fine again. Silence stretched, heavy with the unsaid. I can't hurt the kids, she whispered. You're not hurting them by being true, I said. She stood abruptly. I have to go. He's due home soon. I walked her to her car. She lingered, words hovering on her lips, but drove off. I watched her taillights bleed red into the dusk until they vanished. That night, no message. The next morning, my phone jolted me awake. I'm tired of always being right. I want to feel alive again. I read it twice, heart thudding, then typed, let's start with truth. What do you want from me, Sloane? Instant reply, no fairy tale. Just someone who sees me and doesn't look away. I didn't look away. The first time she came to my place it was raining, not a downpour, but a fine mist that hushed the world. I opened the door to find her in a navy sweatshirt, no umbrella, strands of hair plastered to her cheeks. Her face was wary yet resolute. I couldn't spend another night in that house, she murmured. Come in. We didn't touch, no kisses. We sank onto the couch side by side, listening to the rain patter like a shared secret. I brewed tea, chamomile, her favorite from our chats. She wrapped herself in my wool blanket like armor, shoulders finally easing. Words were scarce that night, the quiet did the work. It became our ritual. Late evenings, after the kids were down and Oliver was either snoring or jet-lagged from another trip, Sloane would slip over. She never stayed till dawn. We skirted boundaries. I never pushed, though. God, how I ached to hold her hand when she confessed feeling nothing inside, or pull her close when she wondered aloud when anyone last asked how she truly was. More than passion, I wanted to shield her, not from Oliver's neglect, but from the erosion gnawing at her core. One evening, she was quieter than usual, cross-legged on the floor, staring into nothing. I perched on the couch behind her. Then, out of nowhere, I told him that I'm unhappy. I leaned forward. She didn't turn. I said I feel nothing anymore, that we're roommates. And, I ventured, careful. He laughed. Said it's a phase. Suggested a bath and some wine. A rage flickered in me, hot, unfamiliar, wanting to storm out and shatter something. But that's not who I am, and she didn't need a fixer. She twisted to face me, eyes locking on. Theo, you make everything complicated. How so? Because here, with you, I feel seen again. And I'm scared of wanting it this much. She rose, shrugged on her jacket. I'm leaving. I let her go, the door's click echoing like finality. The silence that followed wasn't empty, it pressed down. Thick and unresolved. We went dark for days, no text, no signs. I convinced myself my mere existence had upended her fragile balance. Then, Hay found our messages. My pulse raced. You okay? We fought. He yelled that I'd cheated. I said nothing happened. He said it's the same thing. What do you want to do? Silence. The next afternoon, a knock, unannounced. There she stood, no hoodie shield, eyes puffy and raw. Her voice cracked. I told him I want a divorce. I stepped aside. She collapsed onto the couch, curling into herself like a child evading the world. Knees to chest, she whispered, I don't know what's next, Theo. How to tell the kids, how to find myself again. I sat beside her. You're not alone. For the first time she leaned into me fully, light, spent, finally allowing the weight to share. No kisses, no urgency, just presence, honest and unadorned. The weeks that followed were brutal, fiercer than the quiet erosion she'd endured for years. She crashed at her sister's, the kids on air mattresses in the living room. Makeshift forts from couch cushions. Oliver raged, then begged, then lashed out with veiled threats. Sloane stood firm, her resolve a quiet steel I'd only glimpsed before. We saw each other sparingly, her energy sapped by lawyers and tears, but daily text anchored us a quick, thinking of you, or, hang in there. I saved every one, not from doubt, but because I knew how brittle it all was, like fresh plaster waiting to crack. One evening her call came through, voice steady as glass. I signed. I held my breath, hearing only her exhale. I should feel free, right? But inside, everything's still, frozen still. You didn't fail, I said. You chose yourself, pause. What if I don't know who that is? You'll remember. And I'll be here while you do. That night she stayed. Not an hour, not till midnight, but through till morning. We slept tangled, wordless, the deep surrender of bodies no longer on guard. I woke with her hand still in mine. She met my gaze. I'm scared to fall in love again. That's okay, I murmured. But I'm not going anywhere. Her smile cracked open, genuine, unstrained. You know, she said, you never tried to fix me. That's why I trusted you. Now we live together. Not some dream house on a hilltop, but a cozy apartment in a sleepy street where the world feels contained. From my work I've learned to read rooms, how lines guide the eye, how light kisses a surface to life, how folks instinctively seek corners that cradle them. I never imagined crafting a space for a little family to unfurl without the air turning thick. But that's what it is. Sloane's kids, Ilias, 7 with his endless questions and Leela, 5 all boundless energy. Pedal bikes down the sidewalk, tires humming on cracked pavement. Neighbors wave as I mow the tiny strip of lawn, I nod back. Content in the rhythm. There's a bench out front I built myself, rough, hewn pine that still carries the scent of sap, no frills. But it's ours, scarred and solid. Sloane doesn't vanish into that old, silent drift anymore. No more apologies for her emotions, no hiding in doorways. She laughs loud now, belts out off-key tunes while stirring dinner. Paints messy abstracts with Leela at the kitchen table, teaches Elias to tie his shoes with infinite patience. Some evenings, I linger at the counter, watching normalcy knit itself back. How the chairs tuck just so, how sunlight slants through the blinds to gild her hair. I catch myself sketching mental blueprints, shifting a shelf for better flow, adding a lamp to soften shadows, a trailing ivy to ease a stark angle. But what matters isn't the design, it's the people who fill it, who truly see each other. Sunsets find us on the porch swing, hands laced, watching the sky bleed from blue to ash to ink. I think back to that dance floor corner, her hesitant palm in mine, saying yes, without a word. Lately, Sloane turned to me. I don't feel guilty for being happy anymore. I smiled. Because you're home. She is, not in bricks and mortar but in her skin, and maybe, just a little, in me too. It'd be tempting to spin our story as pure romance, all glow and no grit, as if there were no shadowed corners, no sleepless nights chasing what-ifs. But that's not truth. There were days Sloane second, guessed it all, eyes drifting to memories of the old house. Not pining for Oliver, but for the familiar ache of routines that once felt safe. Nights when silence clawed at her, and we'd drive aimlessly through Seattle's rain, slick streets, wipers swishing like a metronome, until the patter on the windshield lulled her into peace. Moments when I felt small, helpless against her storms, irritated at my urge to solve them anyway. But then I'd recall her words that I never tried to mend her. That I just stayed, steady, not salvaging. As an interior architect, I've picked up a lesson no seminar ever taught: spaces don't always need grand overhauls. Sometimes it's realigning a sticky door so it swings true, or hanging a pendant light over the dining table to warm faces in conversation. Or subtraction, knock out a wall, let air and sightlines breathe. That's us, no fireworks, but a subtle redraw of boundaries. From separate blueprints, a shared one emerged, neither swallowing the other whole. Ethan dropped by once to claim a coffee table I'd crafted for him back in our roommate days. He paused in the hall, eyeing the framed photos. Sparse, but deliberate, a candid of Sloane mid-laugh, Elias's finger-painted masterpiece, Leela asleep on my shoulder. You look settled, Theo, he said, grinning. I shrugged. Maybe for the first time. After he left, the apartment hushed again. And it hit me, the quiet had shifted, no longer a roar of absence, but a grounded hum. Weighty, yes, but anchoring rather than crushing. Revisiting those early texts, okay, is complicated. I see the bravery packed into those syllables. Not the valor of torching bridges, but the quiet guts to show up raw, unsure of the fallout. And the kids, who once huddled on inflatable beds amid boxes, now pitching blanket forts in the backyard, giggling over glow sticks. It hits how lives pivot when you voice a truth and cling to it. It's not about ease descending, it's the heavy no longer setting the tempo. Folks sometimes ask what magic words I used to win her over. Known, I tell them. I brewed coffee black and strong. Just how she liked. Draped blankets over her shivering frame on stormy nights. Dimmed the overheads when daylight stabbed too sharp. Sat in silence when words would wound. Spoke softly when her thoughts spiraled inward. I didn't cling when she needed space to breathe. Held her hand when staying felt right. And I chose myself daily too. For now. Not for some tidy narrative others demand. Sloane says I've taught her to see color again. It's the loveliest thing anyone's ever said. The kind that sticks, reshaping how you move through rooms. I know the weight of walls bearing ghosts, yellowed nicotine in cracks, phantom dents from furniture that never fit, scuffs from footsteps long gone. You could slap paint over it all, but better to scrub clean, spackle the voids, redirect the light, not cover, renew. Sloane didn't gloss her past, she primed it fresh. Now, a hue that inhales and exhales. Evenings, we crack the windows, cool air rushing in like an invitation. Faintly, that wedding song echoes in my mind. Not as oars, but as a pulse reminding how it starts, not grand declarations. But a gaze affirming you needn't justify your being. That's home to me, not a pin on a map, but a state where you're witnessed, and witness in turn. Just last weekend, the three of us hit the hardware store, Sloane, Elias and me, hunting pendant lights for the kitchen. Elias grabbed a flashlight, beaming wild constellations across the high ceilings. I want stars in my room, he declared, eyes wide, ones we can switch on. We chuckled, the sound bouncing off metal shelves. Later, installing it in his space, I flicked the switch. The ceiling bloomed with twinkling points, a makeshift galaxy. He spun in circles, whooping, "Look, a whole sky." Sloane caught my eye, that brief, wordless "thank you" from our dance floor shadows. No fanfare, just quiet accord. The burdens led us here, to this luminous ordinary. I won't wrap our tale in a bow. No epiphany final, just this. I didn't avert my eyes. Neither did she. Day by day, we lean in. Two souls relearning, approach without surrender. It's no spectacle, it's solid. And after all we'd weathered, that's plenty. More than enough.